Damn! HBO and Warner Brothers just keep ramping up the pressure, and this week's House of the Dragon episode continues that trend. I fully went into this show with the expectation that they would vastly underperform the mild hype that got through the tidal wave of press Amazon was buying for Rings of Power. Add into that the fact that you had actors and producers saying the usual Hollywood stupidity, which just made me even more positive that I would not like House of the Dragon. And finally, I was a Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin normie. As a matter of fact, I was about as big a Game of Thrones normie as it was possible to be and still be interested in what HBO managed to cobble together into a Game of Thrones prequel. There were more or less important factors going against House of the Dragon, but damn if the crew in charge of the series hasn't overcome all but one of them. And we will talk about that one this week in my spoiler-free review of Episode 5 of HBO's House of the Dragon. So strap in and be prepared to be disappointed in the lack of details. If you want details, go watch my Rings of Power spoiler review. They are bad details, but if I had to sit through it, so should you. Anyway, on with it. We open this week with another example of the benefits of real sets and cinematography over CGI. A sweeping shot of the lands of Prince Daemon's wife as she goes to hunt alone. The shots throughout this episode were just gorgeous, especially the aerial views. If they were CGI, Amazon needs to can the hacks embezzling their money for the static views we have been getting in the Rings of Power the last couple of weeks. The pretty colors have long since stopped being enough to gain them credit, as more and more is seen to be lacking when compared to House of the Dragon. Shortly thereafter, we get treated to the acting talent Emily Carey showed in the first couple of episodes, just in time for her to be replaced by Olivia Cooke. She was superb in this episode, and it was nice to see her go out with a bang. Her scene with Rhys Ifans as her father was the opening salvo in a performance I wish she gave the entirety of her run as Alicent. Rhys Ifans, limited though he has been in the last couple of episodes, continues his excellent performance. It was about this time in the episode that the costume, prop, and set design departments impinged on my awareness yet again. They have been worth all the money Warner Brothers has spent on them for this series. Everything from the dresses on the women, to the carriages the king rides in, to the stony keep sets were first rate. The only blight on the show from those departments are the horrid wigs used in this series, especially Rhaenyra's, Lord Corlys Valerian's son. It barely moves, and it looks about as real as ragdoll hair. Sir Criston Cole had a more prominent role this week, as his performance last week probably should have clued everyone into. Fabian Frankel continues his admirable run as Princess Rhaenyra's guard. He had an especially poignant and mildly shocking part in this week's episode. My only problem with him was not Frankel's acting, which was very good, but in the unlikely idealism. Those who have seen combat rarely hold on to such wide-eyed dreaminess, well acted as it was. On the Lord Corlys front, I am still of the opinion that Steve Toussaint was terribly miscast and is being misused. He has a presence on screen that can't be overlooked, despite how they try to portray him as a weaker man than he is. I liked having him on camera more this episode, if only to solidify my opinion of Toussaint as an actor. I guess this would be the time to talk about the one thing HBO has failed to overcome in my prejudgment of House of the Dragon, namely the modern politics. It peeked its imbecilic head above the parapet this episode, but not so much as to drag you out of the story, and it did so in the person it usually has in this show, Princess Rhaenys, Lord Corlys' wife. Brief though it was, it caught my attention. The actress that plays her was one of the more vocal in the media run-up to the show's premiere about her agenda and the agenda of the show, along with Olivia Cooke and Emma Darcy. I am hoping with those two joining the cast next week that it does not signal a ramping up of the stupidity. We get enough of that from the Rings of Power. Paddy Considine is doing a masterful job portraying a weak king who sees his end in sight. This week's performance was another level for him as he watches his court watch him, wondering what will come beyond him. His new hand, portrayed by Gavin Spokes, It is also good, even if he is overshadowed by his predecessor in that position. Otto Hightower, played by Rhys Ifans, was going to be hard to follow. Lionel Strong is the hand Viserys needed from the start. We get another scene with Lord Jason Lannister this week, and damn if the actor who portrays him was not written as the very caricature modern feminists have in their mind for all men. It was a second peek by modern politics in the show this week. Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra and Paddy Considine as the king made it mildly amusing, but it had me squirming with embarrassment for the poor actor, Jefferson Hall, who had to utter the ridiculous lines. Daemon is still the best thing about this show. He was on screen for a couple minutes at the beginning, and then he makes an entrance near the end, and I literally perked up even before I was sure it was him. Matt Smith imbues him with a gravity nobody else on this show has. Given some of the things I have seen hinted at in my prep work for these reviews, I'm looking forward to seeing what else Martin and the writers have in store for him in this show. Assuming he survives for much more of it, that is. From what little I know of Game of Thrones, I know Martin likes to kill off main characters with casual disregard for viewers' displeasure. As this episode ended, all I could think was, wow! It has been a long time since I watched a show that had me this interested in it. Unfortunately, we have arrived at the major time jump, and the requisite recasting of Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra for Emma Darcy, and Emily Carey as Alicent Hightower for Olivia Cooke. Millie Alcock's performance has somehow turned Rhaenyra into my second favorite character in this show, and I have seen nothing of Emma Darcy that says she can fill those shoes. Everything I have seen of her in clips seems to indicate she is more like episode 1 Rhaenyra rather than episode 2 to 5 Rhaenyra. While I do not have such reservations for Olivia Cooke's ability to take over as Alicent, especially given Emily Carey's inconsistent performance over the 5 episodes, I do question whether she will bring her politics into the role as she has in the media. She was easily the most irritating of the cast in the media run-up to the premiere, and she has me worried about the character going forward. All things considered, episode 5 turned out to be the best one so far, letting Millie and Emily go out on top. Next week's trailer seemed to suggest we're going back to the episode 1 storyline, but I hope not. And that is something I have not come close to saying even once with Rings of Power. That is all for this week's House of the Dragon spoiler-free review. If you like what I do here, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and share the video to help out with the algorithm. And I will be back soon with a new video.